Welcome, Bear Down, part of the Coach Steve Show. Everything Chicago Bears. We are in the off season, and we have a head coach.
We got him.
We got him. We got the hot commodity name on Monday, I believe, because today's Wednesday. On Monday, it was breaking news that Ben Johnson would be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. So probably the hottest name in this coaching cycle picks the Chicago Bears in division rival, nonetheless. After the Detroit Lions lost to the Washington Commanders in the playoffs, which was not a good showing for them, too many turnovers, their defensive injuries caught up with them, I think. And we'll probably get into that because a lot of things have been said about that game. Aaron Glenn also today is hired as the Jets head coach, so they have lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, their D-line coach is now the DC for the Patriots. So they are getting poached left and right.
The brain drain is real.
So we're going to discuss the hire for the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson and our thoughts. And I figured it'd be fun because Detroit Lions fans have not been very kind over the internet with this. No. Even on the Pat McAfee show, they were bashing him on there. Not quite Pat McAfee, but his friends on there, the show. They were all bashing Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. I watched an 8-minute clip of it. I can't tell if they were doing it for comedic purposes or if it was true. So a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on the situation, but let me just ask you this, and I'll say mine. Monday, breaking news, it said Ben Johnson was hired. What was the initial thoughts of seeing this report? You sent it to me. I was like, oh my God. What was the initial thought?
My initial was, wow, they actually did it, because I really thought, and you and many others, I think, were on the same page with this. I thought they were going to screw this up in terms of trying to get him there. The Raiders hype seemed at an all-time high. And it just seemed like the whole Brady effect and the resources of Mark Davis and just how much they don't care about slinging and wheeling and dealing to get a deal done. I thought they were going to just land him. But, the more that's come out since Monday kind of makes it seem like Chicago was, once certain hurdles were reached, it was the only realistic destination he wanted to be in, unless certain requirements weren't met. And I think that's what happened here. So definitely was a shock, because it doesn't seem like a Bears hire that they would have landed in the past whatsoever. And they got it done. But I mean, we'll talk a little bit about this. There's a reason, but there's reasons why this happened. But I definitely, one of the surprise reasons is very much a trend that the McCaskies do not do, is what I'll say. And I'll save it for a moment. But I take it you had similar. I think you and I talk all the time. So I mean, it felt like that was the case. No,
I was incredibly shocked, because like you and probably most Bears fans, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop of how do they screw this up, right? We didn't get – he was one of the top candidates. And with every candidate that we talked about, there was good and bad with both. Because there's, I think number one for both of us was Mike Vrabel. But once that Patriots job came open, we kind of knew, yeah, he'll end up there. But there was good and bad with hiring him. We knew there'd be good and bad with hiring Ben Johnson. But he was the hot commodity last year. And to still be the hot commodity, we both were like, they're not going to get him. They will pick a safer hire. They will say, well, we need a guy with head coaching experience, which is nice, and they'll get a lame duck coach again, kind of like a John Fox, because they just don't do things right. Because the last head coaching cycle, we had the McCaskies and Ryan Poles involved. The only difference here was Kevin Warren. He was the only one that was different in this hiring cycle. And I said this, I don't trust Kevin Warren, but I feel like this had Kevin Warren written on it too with Ryan Poles.
It seems to be the belief around at least the main media sites.
Right.
Like,
And
it was a Warren push deal because this doesn't feel like that Poles or McCaskey. Well, maybe Poles, but McCaskey's the one with the money, and Warren's the one talking to him most often. You would think right above, and they've said the structure is the traditional up-down structure. So probably not Poles that's in his ear as much. Let's be honest.
right. It's the Bears. Another good way to put for the Bears is that they're always status quo. Like, again, we always talk about they're okay with just being okay. So it's always status quo. And then the reports that we had seen about maybe Poles is pushing away from Ben Johnson because he might replace him and blah, 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 blah. I don't know how true those are now since they do have him in. The good things that Ben Johnson said about Ryan Poles today and yesterday when he got there shows that he's willing to work with Ryan Poles. Kevin Warren is seen all over the place now, so I think Kevin Warren is probably putting his foot down a little bit and saying, like, we got to get this right. We got to get it done. And I think he had a big say in this. But yes, I was shocked that it actually happened because I was waiting for like the Flores hire. I was waiting for somebody else, that wasn't Pete Carroll, that wasn't Ben Johnson, that wasn't Cliff Kingsbury. Like, I was waiting for something like, oh my God, they are going to hire the defense coordinator from Miami. Like, oh my God, I bet they hire the OC from the Cardinals. Like, I guarantee something like this is going to happen. And then I was also more shocked about how quickly it happened. I was expecting the end of the week. I was expecting, some time, especially because the Lions had literally just lost on Saturday. I think I was shocked too of how quickly it was done.
That was fast. It's really fast.
And they had just interviewed Eddie George. Like, he was interviewed with the Bears too, which was weird. Another weird interview they did because they interviewed him. I think Sunday. I think Saturday or Sunday.
Yes. He was practically announced as an interview near shortly after the Lions lost to Washington.
Yeah, it was like Jay Glazer announced it. He said, reports tomorrow, the Bears are going to interview Eddie George. And I was watching the TV and I said, are you really? They're literally interviewing everybody, which whatever. And that's why I thought it would take another week to come up with a hire. So I was shocked about who it was. I was shocked about how fast it was.
Well, before we move, have you heard why people believe George was last minute?
That part I did.
Because the theory online, I'm just putting out there because we've seen this with the Patriots too. I'll be honest with you. It's the Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
That's what the leading discussion's been. Like, you pick up a guy to interview last minute like that. All of a sudden, Ben Johnson, less than 24 hours, is getting hired.
Right.
That's like, I'm not saying that's actually what happened, but eye test makes me and a few others, I think, question a little bit.
Yeah, that probably makes sense that they did that, but still, regardless of how quickly it happened, was awesome because the quicker they got it done, the quicker you can get a staff, the quicker you can meet with players and get that figured out and figure out the roster. So the question marks you're going to have with this hire is you got to hire a defensive coordinator. How involved are you going to be with defense? How involved are you with special teams? And then even though you're going to be calling the plays, you still have to have like that offensive coach with you because you have more responsibilities and they're going to have to get things done. So those are some of the question marks we're going to have with this hire. But I think it says something about Ben Johnson was like one of the number one coaches to hire last year, but one of the top names again this year. So he is doing something right. And, a lot of things on the internet have been flying around. One of them was it's Matt Nagy all over again. And I will argue that because Ben Johnson actually called the plays in Detroit. Yes. Matt Nagy. So who Ben Johnson wants to hire, right? I hate that they have to title. If the head coach calls plays, I absolutely hate that they hire somebody and call them an OC because they're really not calling plays, but they are setting everything up for the head coach that's calling them.
Mhm.
That's what Matt Nagy does for Andy Reid. Like Matt Nagy's that guy that like watches all the film, breaks it down, does this, does that, gets it ready for Andy Reid. Matt Nagy probably has some ideas during the games, sees certain things, lets him know, just is in the ear of Patrick Mahomes of like another set of eyes. That's what Matt Nagy is and was when we hired him. Nobody was doing that for Ben Johnson. Like he was the OC. He's been the OC for the past 3 years. You don't see Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell has a sheet on his leg, but that's just for like situations. That's for him just to look at things, different personnel. Like that's what his sheet is. If there's a fourth down situation, he probably glances at it and says, yeah, let's try to do one of these three things. That's what Dan Campbell is.
Mhm.
But like in Ben Johnson's press conference today, um, he was asked, what did you learn from Dan Campbell? What are you going to bring here? And he said, one thing that I learned was how to let people, he let all of us do our jobs. Like he trusts us to do our jobs. He made you feel important, like from the office people to the coaches. So hearing that, I'm like, okay, he allowed you to do your job, which was the offense. So this is him calling offense. This is not Matt Nagy. This is a guy coming in that has called offense. He's coached,
Exactly.
and he's coached like almost all positions. I said like O-line. If you look, he was like a tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers. So he's done all of that. So this is not Matt Nagy. So if I see that one more time, I'm gonna completely lose it. This
I
is
don't
not
know how people can, like, it's very much out there. This information is very available that he only got a few games before he was hired in Chicago. Like that's what's crazy to me. This has been long established right by now. So
yeah.
I
It's
don't
it's
I don't know how that comparison can even come up because it's not the same whatsoever. But
right.
yeah.
So he was hired. I love the video of him walking into Hallis Hall, looking at all the people and like saying this is where he wanted to be, saying the right things. Then he had his press conference today, and I was very curious how it was going to go because we're so used to Matt Eberflus's press conferences and how bad they were.
Mhm.
For him to go up there and talk for 30, he talked for like 10 minutes, took some questions. So he's up there for like 30 some minutes. He said a lot of good things. But kind of like you said before, and I'm kind of the same way. It's awesome. It's exciting. It's like a breath of fresh air of like, we're starting over without tearing the roster down again, like we did with Matt Eberflus. Like we do have somewhat of a roster. There's still some pieces to be fixed, but we're just kind of restarting with the coach to fit to these pieces, which is awesome. Breath of fresh air. But like most Bears fans, we have been hurt too many times. We've seen some of this song and dance too many times. So a lot of people are excited. I'm excited, but it's cautious excitement of I'm going to be excited. I'm back in on the Bears. You know, you have to kind of be back in a little bit. But it's still you're saying these things. Can you deliver these things? Like he came in and said, I know the O line has to be addressed. He even said, he goes, the men I worked with in Detroit were awesome. He goes, that's something we have to build up immediately, and other pieces that are involved. He said that there's going to be accountability, there's going to be consequences. He said we will make example of those players that do not live up to what those are.
Looking at you, Tyreek Stevens.
Yes. So then another report came out that some of the Lions players are saying like he's actually more of a like he looks not like a coach that's going to get after you. They said he actually does. And that was one of my question marks is you look like a conservative person, like Dan Campbell's all excited moving around and he's just calling plays. He does get excited a little bit, but they're saying like he will get after you. Like he will push you to be tough. He is going to do this. And he hinted at that in his press conference. So those are the things I like to hear. And I hope he can do it. But again, we have to be Matt Eberflus said the same thing, the hits principle and stuff like that. So we have to kind of be cautious as Bears fans when we're hearing these things again.
I did think the hits principle back at the time was good. And keep in mind, Matt Eberflus was and still will be when he gets a DC coordinator position. He was the top guy there. That being said, yes, this press conference, I've checked it after the fact. You and maybe other viewers know, got to sleep through some stuff sometimes. It's my life outside this show. And I did catch up. I like what I heard or read on X. You know, it's hitting all the right bells and whistles and, you know, kind of clicking the right buttons here for people. That's fine. You know, I think, yes, you do want a coach that challenges your players. You know, you do want a coach that, you know, I think does want to, you know, take on the brunt of working with a quarterback like Caleb Williams and does want to, you know, see, hey, you know, I know this will be different than me being in Detroit where I have a, you know, a bunch of well put together pieces and skilled players that are, you know, especially at the quarterback position, slightly different skill sets. You know, he even said this isn't going to be a Jared Goff and Detroit offense. This is going to be a different look that because we don't have the same player base right now, you know, and I acknowledge that. But I, you know, and I talk with you before show and I talk with you in text. We keep up conversation all the time on this because that's just how we are. And it's just like, I am very much a guy. I can only take watching the same thing again and again and again until I have to be like, all right, well, that's cool. This is just checking a box. Like, you know, new coaches get a bunch of pageantry, get a bunch of celebration. You can argue that, well, we didn't have the same excitement for the previous one or like others before. It's like, yes, but trust me, everybody who has ever been in this fan base overreacts within the first several months of a new coaching hire. It doesn't matter who it is. Matt Eberflus also had a massive draw, even if some people thought it wasn't the right hire. I didn't like the hire at the time, but we still were optimistic, very optimistic to a degree. Matt Nagy, I mean, shoot, if you want to go back to Matt Nagy, like I've heard people say Ben Johnson's the greatest coaching hire in Bears history. We thought about that about Matt Nagy for a while. Like let's not forget revisionist history. People were losing their minds because they picked up an offensive coach from the Kansas City Chiefs who had won a Super Bowl. God damn it.
You said something bad about Ben Johnson, and look what happened. But yes, we all thought Matt Nagy was the next best thing. Offensive mind under Andy Reid. He was just going to be looking at what he did his last two games. He's going to bring in the play calling of Andy Reid. He's going to do all this. So Ben Johnson, though, like I think is a little different, but we were excited, and especially going to you win 12 games the first year is pretty impressive. So
I will not be denied that the FBI agent who is watching this stream will not kick me off again. Let me finish my thought. Point is, we do new coaches, doesn't matter the team. This happens every time. People will lose their mind. It's a new era. It's a new day, you know, and I'm fine with getting a little stoked. You know, some of the stuff that's different this time, I do want to go into and kind of kick things off with. But again, history has shown, like, again, we're talking last time we had an offensive coach. It was the same deal. We've turned a leaf. And credit, that first year, I think we all believed we turned a leaf with Matt Nagy. Problem is the league caught up. So that's the difference. You know, that optimism, can we continue success and can we get success right off the bat? But I want to say what has been to many a very different feeling coaching cycle. I do have to acknowledge that because I can't be honest with myself or you, Steve, or anyone that's listening without acknowledging that, yes, the Bears have done some stuff that old Bears would not have done. They fired Matt Eberflus mid-season. What the hell? That hasn't happened. No coaches left this season alone, like out as a head coach since George Halas went to go to fight the war. They also don't pull out the checkbook like they do with this one. It's been reported that Ben Johnson is going to be making a whopping $13 million a year, which is like top 10 coaching salary in the NFL. For perspective, and I had to double check this, and you know I remember this from a youth from a youth years that Lovie Smith was like paid dirt cheap for his tenure
Right.
in Chicago. So I went back, I double checked myself. So of the last 4 Bears head coaches, Ben Johnson easily makes double the money of any of the last coaches that have been in Chicago's tenures. The highest paid was Matt Nagy at $6.5 million a year. That was the reported number.
Wow.
Matt Eberflus made 4.5. Ben Johnson's making 13. So look, I know that the talk, a lot of it's around Caleb. Absolutely. I think that's a factor, but let's not discount that the money definitely has something to play here. This man definitely could have gone to Las Vegas and got paid the same number. I think if he doesn't get that number, he's not here.
Right.
I'm going to be dead serious. That is insane cash they're throwing around for perspective on how Chicago looks at head coaching roles in the past. And yeah, to me, honestly, if Ben Johnson pays off, that's one of the biggest gambles that the McCaskey family has made in the 21st century that the Bears have existed. So yes, this is a big gamble. Like they are like credit biggest candidate, I think, in terms of coordinators on the market. So I get it. You have one of the hottest names out there that's going to get pursued, but this is big dollars. Like Ben Johnson was getting his bag one way or another. Chicago was, and this is probably why people were surprised, by the way, that they landed him. It's because Chicago doesn't pay their coaches like that. They just don't. The fact they're paying $13 million shows that no, this is different. Somebody, as we say, got into George's ear and said, "Look, you need to pay this guy." Okay, like we have done the same song and dance year over year. Pick the big time candidate, roll with the big time candidate. Like money definitely has an involvement here. I know people have kind of talked about it, but I think it's also been discounted a little bit. Like that is a big factor. I've got to be honest with you. Huge. That is a huge factor into why he came here.
Huge. This is off topic. I don't know what's going on. I just see a black screen.
You do? I'm looking at YouTube. We're live, so
I know it's there, but like on StreamYard, it's just a black screen. I sent you a picture of it on Twitter.
Well, we'll investigate the mystery of the black screen. I am seeing myself on YouTube, so
yeah, so it's on YouTube. Happening. I have no idea.
You can throw me out of backstage and throw me on again. I don't mind. How am I looking now?
Black screen, man. You're looking good.
Seriously. All right, we'll tell you what. Let me rejoin. You can carry the show a bit while I make it look like you can see me, so I'm not just some like entity in the nether. All right, keep going. I'll be right back. I'm still here, but I'll be right back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. You guys can see it on YouTube, but on my end, it was a black screen, which is awkward if you can see him there. But what do people think? Like, if you're watching, paying him $13 million is nuts. There he is.
You can see me now?
I was just saying, it was kind of awkward. I could see you on YouTube, but on here it's just a black screen. And I was like, what the hell is going on?
I did catch your line there. $13 million is wild. Like, he's getting paid more than John Harbaugh.
Which is nuts. Like, so in the press conference, he said he's been coming to Cubs games for years. He wanted to be in Chicago. They love the area, which I'm sure is all true. But if they're going to pay him $13 million a year, he's probably like, oh, okay. Because I guarantee the Raiders would have paid that.
Well, and it fits the narrative, though. Keep in mind, all the talk around Ben Johnson has been he's very picky. He's going to be a top candidate. He knows his value. This ain't a guy that's coming in and just like, eager first big job candidate thing. This is a dude that knows what he was going to get on the market.
Right.
Like very coveted guy. And just let me just reiterate. So some of the coaches notable that he is beating in salary, by the way, just want to throw that out there because again, I think this cannot be understated that I think the money is a huge factor as to why he even is in Chicago. He's being outpaid. He's getting a higher year by year reported salary than John Harbaugh, His
Wow.
own former head coach and Dan Campbell, by the way. Nick Sirianni, Sean McDermott, Matt LaFleur, which, whatever, Bears fans and all that, but still, like, your rival team, who is the guy's had way more success than the team he's been beating down on for years, is getting paid $6 million a year. Like, you're paying Ben Johnson double your rival head coach's salary.
That's
Mike
crazy.
McCarthy was making $4 million for the Dallas Cowboys.
Jesus.
Like, that's what's crazy. We're talking like he is being paid like this guy needs to perform right out of the gate. And yes, he's looked at as the wonderkin, but like, dude's getting a bag, like a legit bag.
Yes.
Being in
And
Chicago.
which, again, like you said, I think the most craziest part is, yes, it's crazy that he's making that money, not being a head coach before and everything else. But what's crazy is it's coming from the Bears.
That's the thing. And that's the thing. They don't pay coaches like that. They historically are terrible at paying coaches like that.
Which, I mean, if it works out, like, I will say this, because sometimes you have to take a gamble when you do this stuff. McCaskies don't take gambles. They're status quo. They're let's do more with less. Let's find the diamond in the rough. Let's not do this. Was it Kevin Warren that got in their ear and said, listen, like, look at the other teams, like, look what they're doing, and it's working out. And, we're a top 10 most valuable franchise. We're the city of Chicago. We're not living up to the standards. And if that is coming from Kevin Warren, cool. Like I said, I have my thoughts on Kevin Warren, but I said he can earn it back if he starts doing things like this. Did Ryan Poles put his foot down? Did Kevin Warren help change Ryan Poles' mind? Like, I don't know. Did the McCaskies finally have a coming to Jesus moment and say, oh, because they say they don't care that they heard the sell the team chants? That had to have struck a nerve of like sell the team. Like that had to have.
To put in maybe more perspective, how kind of crazy the money is that they are throwing at him in terms of Bears fandom. George McCaskey was quoted during the Matt Eberflus like coaching cycle that money is not an object in that cycle. They went cheaper at head coach in that coaching cycle in 2022. Just think about that. 4.5 mil. Again, that was spare no expense at the time. Credit, different organization in terms of no Kevin Warren as being the main factor if we want to lean on that. But that was spare no expense Bears 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just I want you to wrap your head around that for a second for anyone that's listening, how crazy that is.
I know. And
There's
I think that's
definitely a difference.
So which is more crazier, the fact that they got Ben Johnson and they finally did this, or was the fact that they actually opened up the pocketbook to get the coach?
I think it's the pocketbook. Like they wanted a lot. I think they wanted him. I think people, if we're looking at, again, young QB talent, a guy that I think honestly it's weird because I think it's just Bears QB, like mixed bag on how people respond. I think he had a good season, but you talk to like the wider NFL fan base is like mixed results on the guy, but has a lot of upside, just needs to be given the right person. And again, we're talking a number 1 overall pick. So it's just those pieces seem to make a lot of sense. They have a good receiving core, just terrible investment at pieces that the general manager didn't do his job on in the interior, which, yes, Ryan Poles has admitted that, but I still hold him accountable for screwing up a build for an ex-former offensive lineman. I'm just going to
Right.
I'll get into a little more on that because as I will say right now, Ryan Poles is a new Matt Eberflus to me, where I'm like, I don't fully believe he should be here, but we're going to have him here. I have to live with that. So,
right. This saved his job for a year. For 1 year, he saved his job.
Shoot, look online, Steve. The sympathy that people have given Ryan Poles within 2 months it's amazing. It's one of the greatest PR swings I've seen for any like office managerial person in the NFL ever. Like for 3 years production, it's incredible. He landed the fish. It's like, yes, Ryan Poles is the king of the offseason haul, guys. Wins don't matter, but the hauls, this man's a king at the hauls, people.
Did you see that? Yeah. They were like, King Poles, and I'm like, wait. Every single one of you just said fire him, get rid of him. He's terrible. Everything
I
else.
know.
Then they hire Ben Johnson, and now it's like, well, now hold on a second. He got DJ Moore. He drafted Caleb Williams. He got Keenan Allen. He got this. He got this. He got these draft picks. We still have $70 million in cap space. Now we got Ben Johnson. Hold on. He's done really well. And I'm like, okay, you could say that, but the wins. Remember when he said we're going to take the North and never give it back, and then we win 4 games, going to a 10 to 11 game losing streak.
And
like,
you see, these are comments why I don't buy into hype at press conferences like I used to, because like I think it's a cool quote that Ben Johnson went, I enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. It's like, yes, no, that's pretty cool, but
I loved it.
You know, I've heard the same song and dance in the years past. Like, how can you sell me on that when I have watched the same thing play out on tape every time? Now, maybe it's different this time, but like, come on, man. The amount of coaches I've heard that have been like, oh, I'm going to beat down on Green Bay. Oh, I love beating on Green Bay and my other places. We're going to take the North and never take it back. Like, shut up. Just shut up.
So I loved it when I first heard it. Well, I didn't hear it. I saw the picture and the quote, and I said, "There's no way that's exactly what he said." So when I watched it, that's exactly what he said, and I think he was trying to get Bears fans to be like, "Yeah, like I love it." And so when I first heard it, I was like, "I love it." Then I took a step back and I said, "Wait a minute, is history repeating itself?" Where Ryan Poles said the same thing of like, "We're going to take the North and never give it back," and then we have our Justin Fields year, and then we have this year, and it's like, oh. So I just wish sometimes they're careful of what they say, but he's pretty confident. And the reason why he's confident is because I do like this part. And this is why they're comparing him to Shane Waldron.
Mm-hmm.
Shane Waldron forced what he wanted on the offense. Correct. Then the little win streak we had, they changed it. Then we kind of went back to, well, this is what we're doing. And you went out again. See, we're talking bad. We're talking bad about Ben Johnson and some FBI agent for Fox News.
Yeah, now I got my camera. I think someone's out to get me with this because
and again, and it's happening again. You're on YouTube, but it's a black screen.
Whatever. I'll rejoin it. Just keep talking.
Folks, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. We're trying to do different things here. I apologize, everybody. I'll take blame. I don't know what's going on, but it's
me. I don't know what's up. This is how it is. Just how it is. It don't matter. None of this matters.
I remember what I was saying now. But Ben Johnson, he said, guys, this is not going to be the Detroit offense. This is not going to be laying down a playbook and saying this is what we're doing. He's like, I have to look at the team. I have to see what they're capable of doing. Mm-hmm. I have to see what the players can handle, what the quarterback can handle, and that's what it's going to be. He goes, but I am going to tell you this. And he just started rambling off what he thinks it would look like, and I loved it. So that part is awesome. And the fact that he wants all the coaching staff to be on the same page of accountability, sacrifice, how hard are we willing to work? And these are Dan Campbell-esque type of things that he is bringing in here. And so I'm hoping that's what he's learned and bringing in. So that's the exciting part, is that what you can't mimic what Dan Campbell did. You can't just copy and paste it and it's going to work for you. And they brought it up again with the O-line. They said, in Detroit, you guys built that O-line up over years. And look what happened. And he goes, exactly. So he's like, in free agency, we have to look at, guys, how do we bring talent into that room and make it better? And he said, that's going to be like the first vocal point. And then he said, I've had that conversation with Ryan Poles. That's the first thing we got to do, which still doesn't make sense because Ryan Poles being a former O-lineman, that should have been the first thing you did. But again, Ben Johnson is here to bring some stability and bring like consistency and bring that standard that we're missing, and holding the guys accountable and just being competitive and just doing things the way that it needs to be done. And because Chicago should be a place that competes and competes for playoff spots. I mean, forget Super Bowl, never bring that, but it should be a place with the market, with the type of money they have, the attraction of it, that it should be a place that competes. Just
You would think the history, the media market alone, like Chicago is a desirable city to live in for especially the athletic person and the person that has the value to go and stay somewhere, in the city or in its nicer suburbs. Like there's tons to do. It is a wonderful city to live in if you can afford and stay in as well. It has the history as well. Although right now it's a pretty dark period of Chicago sports, if we're being honest. Someone needs to bring a light. That's the thing. Like when I'm listening to Tom Ricketts say that their whole goal for the Cubs is to break even, and then look at the Cubs and see they're one of the third most profitable by revenue teams in baseball, and go, interesting. Who's lying here? Like this is where we're at right now.
Oh my God! When he said, they think we have all this money,
we can't spend like the Yankees and Mets and Dodgers. Like, are you sure about that, Tom? You don't have cash coming in?
And the same thing with the Bears. Well, but all of a sudden now you could pay a guy $13 million. Like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like you can't.
Yeah. And here's one thing: the caveat with that is, as a reminder, coaches do not abide by the salary cap, which is fascinating because there's some people in talks leading up to Johnson's hire that maybe the league does push for a salary cap with coaches if they have to in the future, if it gets like this. I'm not saying it will, but that's the difference. That being said, though, let's talk about the money. Again, I had some very spirited conversations with Bears fans that were taking the sympathetic Ryan Poles approach to the last 3 years. I don't, why I also don't give the man a pass? This is year 4, top 10 cap. 2 of those years, last 2 have been top 5. How do I give a pass to someone who has had money and access to materials to fix core issues? I am glad that he has admitted his faults, but you can't tell me that 3 years is too little time to fix interior positions on the line. I'm sorry, 66 sacks in a season, having that number on your NFL record piece being the 4th worst performance in terms of giving sacks up in a NFL season, I just can't excuse it. And it's amazing. Like all these resources, all this time, 3 years for a GM is a pretty decent amount of time to flip a switch. I don't even care if you want to put in Matt Eberflus. Like, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I said this to someone who tried to be like, this roster isn't that bad. It's like, I mean, yes, you can definitely find pieces, but look, for every TJ Edwards, there's a Tremaine Edmonds on that roster. For every good hire or a good pickup, I can equally pick the exact same opposite to counterbalance. Is all I can tell you.
Lovey for defensive coordinator.
That would be awesome. Can you imagine if they did that? I know Dennis Allen's the lead, which, by the way, they land Dennis Allen. Like, damn, how expensive is this coaching staff?
Well,
like,
that's, I mean, we're kind of bouncing all over because there's things to talk about.
I know.
They said that, and that you're exactly right. And I was thinking that as you were saying it, that they're spending. So I know they don't have to release head coach's salary. So we're just going to sit here and say it's for sure $13 million.
That is reported by Pro Football Talk, by the way. That is who is referencing that. I'm going with their number because that is the source number. So they're saying it's like 13.5 million a year is what he agreed to.
So let's just say it's $13 million, but that's just the head coach. Like you still have to hire a defense coordinator. You got to hire a D-line coach. Like there's still people that you have to go hire. And if you're going to hire a former head coach and you're going to bring him in to be the DC, you are going to have to shell out some money. So again, is this the new McCaskies that they're like, you know what? Screw it. Like something struck them in the heart. somebody they trust, and it might be Kevin Warren, it might be an outside source. We have no idea that is saying like, you have to now get this done. And this is like, we've had enough. And I think social media might have something to do with it because all the people that run their social medias are probably telling them the fans are pissed. Like, like they're extremely upset at what is happening here. And we have to do something to fix it. But you're going to shell out a lot of you shelled out a lot of money for Caleb Williams and stuff. Now you're going to shell a lot of money for the head coach. You're about to shell a lot of money for the coaches. And so, but I do like it because now they're like, we have to get it right. If we're going to have this money, we better make sure this is right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is crazy. And then it was reported that they requested an interview for the assistant head coach for the Rams to be the DC.
Yes.
Used to be in Detroit as
Mm-hmm.
well.
A lot of Detroit. I think that even plays even more to the Detroit brain drain. Because keep in mind, you know, not only do you have, I've been trying to keep up with like all the stuff because I feel like at this point we're also like a Diet Lions show with just how much we enjoy that team. And now the connection between these rosters with now what seems to be it's going to be a bitter rivalry next year. The way that fan base and some of the players have reacted to
we will get to that. We'll get to that very soon.
Yeah. So like, not only do you have Ben Johnson clamoring for assistance from that from that team that might want to take another step up in their careers and follow along and may also follow the money if the Bears are shelling out cash right now. The Jets are definitely going to shell out the money if things are solid and locked in. Like Eric Glenn taking the Jets job, you know, they're going to pursue exact same folks. Like that's a lot of people that are going to be leaving that building. That of course tests Dan Campbell's head coaching legacy, I think, in terms of recruiting, but it's a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot of cash flowing to those teams, most likely, if they are getting recruited up like that, I would think.
Aubrey Pleasant, they requested an interview for him. He was the Rams assistant head coach and pass game coordinator, I'm assuming for defense.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasant and Johnson worked together in Detroit for 2 seasons. So there's that connection. It was rumored that the O-line coach would come, and I was so excited. But then like an hour ago, I saw that wasn't true, that because he's interviewing for the OC job at the Seahawks and stuff. So it's still
right.
Dan Campbell could be losing. Well, he lost his OC, lost his DC, lost his D-line coach. It's possible he loses his O-line coach. I don't know if Ben Johnson will necessarily poach guys from Dan Campbell because I always go back to what Nick Saban has said. Hey, my job is to coach up the players and to win games and get this right. But he's like, I'm also trying to get guys ready to go have their own coaching journey. Like, do they get a better job? He goes, but when you go get your job, you don't talk to my guys. Like, these are my guys. Like, this is what I built, and you want to poach them and like destroy what we're building. Like, go hire people, like get this going. And so I don't know. The reason why they said the O-line coach would come is because he'd be like the OC. He would be that guy with Ben Johnson, which is an upgrade from being at the Lions. I just don't know if that would be like poaching and if that's going to ruin the Dan Campbell relationship between Ben Johnson and himself. So selfishly, I wanted him because we need a new O-line coach. We need a really good O-line coach.
Yes.
But I'm also I'm curious because Ben Johnson was prepared for this head coaching stuff last year. And he said in his press conference, he goes, I made the decision to come back because I wanted to take another crack at this with the Detroit Lions and try to like win a Super Bowl. Like, he's like, that's why I came back. And he goes, and I wanted to learn more about how do you handle all 3 phases of football. And he took time to do that, even more than what he already has. So during that time, I'm assuming he had conversations with people outside of the Detroit Lions and say, hey, you know, if I get a job and everything else. So I'm sure he has some guys in his mind that he would do. And it sounds like Kevin Warren would be involved in these too, because they're going to shell out some money for some of these guys. So I think he's looking for experience in his coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious if he would even talk to Thomas Brown about staying and doing that stuff to be like his offensive guy. Like, the building, Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he'll do that because he needs somebody he can trust. But I really hope he would just talk to Thomas Brown and say, like, I get it. You were the interim head coach. I'm here. You could be like the assistant head coach, or you could do whatever and like be my offensive guy. And I don't know, but that was a thought I was hoping.
My guess is, if I am Thomas Brown, and given just some of the pressers Thomas Brown took while he was trying to finish out the season as interim, I think this is a man that wants to call plays and wants to have his input and say on an offense for a change, where he gets a whole season again to himself. And I think maybe that's why, you're Thomas Brown. You're going, okay, well, if Ben Johnson's coming here, it's probably going to be like an Andy Reid, where he's going to take over the play calling duties and want to run his own thing. I might want to look elsewhere. And again, some people still gave him praise for what he did with Caleb Williams, at least in adjustments, which I think is why the New England hire seems so plausible, besides maybe Josh McDaniels as being the lead candidate, which he is that it's a young QB. He gets a fresh slate with Drake May, who also had a lot of praise this year and has a lot of upside to him. I just see him as more of like, I'm going to take the play calls. Now, if he doesn't get New England, maybe there's a chance he comes to Chicago and they just go, hey, you work for them. Let's keep that comfortability. But he feels like a guy, he wants to call his own thing and control his own destiny. Well, especially after last year. I mean, that was, you're thrown into the slop like that,
Josh McDaniels is hired as the Patriots offensive coordinator. It is confirmed.
That is confirmed?
Josh McDaniels making his way back. Josh McDaniels.
Oh, yep. Never mind. That was as of that was yesterday. Damn, I have been slacking then. So sorry, folks on the live stream. Never mind. Maybe it is the chance. I mean, if he doesn't have an option elsewhere, then I mean, hey, again, but he wouldn't be calling plays. That's the thing. That's my question. Is he okay with taking a step back for a season and kind of doing that again?
That would be the only thing. I was just a thought that it would be kind of cool to keep somebody around that Caleb Williams actually likes and like the comfortability. But I know he was going to interview with the Seahawks for an OC spot, so I guarantee that's what he would look for. And it comes down to being comfortable. Like, you were just calling the shots. Now you're going to have to answer somebody else calling the shots. And that's a job you interviewed for and didn't get. So, but I mean, he interviewed with the Bears last year to get the OC job, didn't get it, and still came to work. So who knows?
Yeah.
So that's the next step here, is very curious about who he hires. Very curious about, the players seemed excited for the Bears. They were like super excited to have him there. So just some question marks about him that we won't get answers to until they start their training camp and everything else, the draft and the free agency, like what kind of inputs he going to have, the relationship with him and Ryan Poles. It's just a lot of things that we are still going to have to wait on, but it is exciting. I'm excited. It's just cautiously excited, paying close attention to it and just kind of seeing who he wants to hire for a staff. I do think that's another piece to this, is that, okay, you got the head coach, you need a staff. Like, nobody from the former staff should stay on besides Thomas Brown. Like, that's like the only guy you should keep. Everybody else has got to go. And it's going to have to be not quite an all-star staff, but it's going to have to be pretty good, I think, if you want to do this and get it done. Because he's like, we got to win now. He was not talking about rebuild. He was like, we got to win now.
I think that pressure is going to be on him from day one. And I especially, it's not going to be talked about, but like, again, Ryan Poles, this is kind of his like big swing to keep in the spot that he's had. Again, I think some of the sympathy is, well, he picked a coach that wasn't that good. So like, yeah, maybe the roster just wasn't held down. It's like, sure, we should have picked him. Well, that's the thing. Remember, that was his handpicked choice. His first one. I know he never did. It was a GM before, and I've had people tell me, "Well, you've never done GM. That you don't know how hard that job is." Yeah, no, No shit, Sherlock. I don't know how hard the job is, but again, like if we're talking body of work, can you blame me? Like or anyone? Like
No.
that's where we're at. Like I agree with Ben Johnson. Holy, this is a win now team. Last year it was talk like this is a win now team. And if you want me to go even deeper, Ryan Poles said this team was going to be a special team last season. So they thought, remember, they thought this was the time last year. So if we're gonna really dive in,
first ever super chat.
Oh my God! Wow, watch your monkey.
Dennis Allen for DC. I kind of like that. Bringing in a former head coach, a guy that knows defense, and that's all he has to worry about. It's Dennis Allen, kind of like Matt Eberflus, where even though I think Dennis Allen did a okay, better job than Matt Eberflus did with what he had.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all he has to worry about, like if Ben Johnson can trust him and say, you're doing the defense, Ben Johnson said he still would have input, but now you have that experience, a former NFL head coach that understands what's going on that and can do that. Like that's what you want. That's exactly what you want and run your defense. And then Dennis Allen can help him hire experienced guys that he trusts in the defense and run that part of it. And Ben Johnson, being the play caller, can then take a step back and focus on offense.
Yeah. I don't mind. Like I said, when they said Dennis Allen, I don't mind. I think it's solid. I mean, Dennis Allen is like Josh McDaniels in terms of being a coordinator. Fantastic job when he is given one thing to focus on.
Right.
He is a great coordinator. He has proven time and time again he is a really great defensive coordinator. So if you bring him in, I have no qualms that he is going to at least minimum bring up and address some issues, or at least have input to fix problems that need to be fixed. Now, credit, I also have to put the caveat, Matt Eberflus didn't do half a bad job at times with his own DC calls. Because remember, up until he was let go, things were still kind of okay. Thing is he wasn't as aggressive. Dennis Allen, I know, is a little more aggressive as a defensive play caller. So that's what'll be the difference.
That's a lovely change of pace to have an aggressive. Like, I wish we would have blitzed more. I wish we had this. There's still some pieces we got to fix on defense. The D line, being healthy in the secondary.
Yeah,
you're like one more linebacker even away from it. But I was telling somebody at work today, it goes O line is the first thing you got to look at. D line, then another running back. We need another Now in that order. You're not going to sacrifice the O-line, D-line to get this running back. You could find running backs if you spend a lot of money on the other stuff, but we still do need a running back. And so that's kind of the order that they have to look into this offseason. And so if they get this experienced staff that has a lot of eyes and knows something like people, and they're really good at watching film and evaluating, it can just help get the Bears to be competitive in the division and get them just to compete for a playoff spot. Again, I don't want to see Super Bowl bullshit for next year. It has to be competing in the division and just fighting for a playoff spot. That's all it is in year one. That's all we're looking for.
Al Davis said it best, and I know we can talk about the end of his career, or his life when it was the owning the Raiders. Just win, baby. That's all that matters right now. It's time. It was time last year, I thought, and it's definitely now. That is what we are all. I think all people that are done with doing the hype train cycle are at is just win. That's all we want to see. That is my one prerequisite for this season. So, but you have to get the pieces you need to do that right. Chicago, to me, needs to, and I'm with you, it has to go straight on the offensive line investment. I think that is
right.
I am done waiting on having to wait till mid rounds to get talent and kind of go with these diamond in the rough contestants, or hearing Ryan Poles. And again, I'm bringing up Ryan Poles because, again, people seem to be sympathetic on this man. Remember, this is a guy that has gone on record to say that what the value in the market wasn't there. He doesn't believe in overpaying for free agent guys. Well, guess what? Maybe the time's now. I am done waiting on a man to not pull the trigger on some pieces in the free agent market for good offensive line talent, especially. Funny enough, some of them are ex-Bears that might be able to.
Yeah.
James Daniels is sitting as one of the top picks right now for guard on the free agent market. Yes, he was injured at the end of the year, knocked him out for a season-ending injury, but he's only gotten better. Apparently, he has way better ratings than he did in Chicago and has rebounded a lot. I think you should invest and see if you can get him back to town. Zeitler, also from Detroit, he is going to be on the open market. Invest in the interior. I think you're much closer on the edges than you are on the inside. Get your guards right. If you figure out what you're doing with Tevin Jenkins, of course, too, but I think throw some money at the position a little bit.
Absolutely.
We've seen the experiment for 3 years of trying to play money ball with linemen. It doesn't work. It is not working. You have to put money this year on the position. And Ryan Poles has said he's going to correct his mistake. Cool. I better see him pull the trigger on a decently high prospect on the free agent cycle this season.
Right.
That is my one prerequisite. You have to pick up one higher value target to get it to Chicago.
Right.
That's it.
I want to address this comment real quick. The Bears already have Swift at running back. Yes, I get it, but Swift to me underperformed for the amount of money that he was getting. And I don't want to hear it was the O-line. I don't want to hear this. He didn't run well between the tackles. He wanted to bounce it outside. We didn't have blockers. We didn't do this. So to me, he underperformed. I don't care what anybody says about yards and everything else. Just watching it, underperformed. I'm not saying get rid of him because we are paying him money. Might as well keep him. I'm saying you just need that 1-2 tandem. Like you need Swift, kind of like in Detroit. You have Montgomery that can run between the tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have another running back that's speedy and like change of pace. To me, you need another running back that can run between the tackles well and make a move. And then Swift is that guy that, okay, they just had this guy run this way. Now Swift runs this way, keep the defense, on their toes a little bit. That's all I'm saying. And that's why it's number 3 on my list. It's not like, oh my God, we need another running back. No, we need O-line, D-line for sure. Then you start looking to running back, linebacker, that type of stuff. And it's not going to get all fixed right now, but hopefully it's enough pieces put in place to just compete for a playoff spot. And that's it. That's all we're looking for.
That is all I care about. And again, we're talking about neglected positions here that we have tried the money ball angle on this and trying to be more, I'm going to, my guts in the draft. I'm going to build the pieces of the Ferrari on the outside and not the chassis. Well, and yes, Darnell Wright's a good pick. Yes, Braxton Jones has been solid, but it's been a neglected position. And I think it's infuriating I'm forgetting you played. I'm remembering, right? You played line as well, right? I'm not crazy. Yeah, it is asinine as a guy who played, and I know I haven't played since high school, but I played line. I played all 3 phases of line. I was a long snapper. I was D tackle. I was the center in my position when I was going through it growing up. The amount of neglect I have watched with the team I love it hurts. It hurts. Yeah. I hate seeing how little investment and the excuses of said investment in that position. It is why I don't defend how they have decided to go about building that part. So you have to do something else this year. It hasn't been working. It's all I ask. So I don't know. Clearly what's weird is too, I'm looking through the mock drafts and seeing what the NFL sphere thinks of this. It's either they're thinking invest in defensive front, which to be fair, Chicago also got bullied super hard in the interior this past year, and the run defense was atrocious. Or I've seen investment in tackle, or CBS Sports, one of their own guys, Chris Trapasso, thinks pick up Ashton Genty, which I like Ashton Genty, but that implies we have to get someone in free
Well,
agency
so
in the middle.
I didn't know how much time you had to do this today, and that's why I was going to skim over that.
I'm still good on time, but
Okay.
yeah.
We were talking about this right after school. Like the bell rang, I was getting ready for practice. Everybody, I wore this to school. Like I'm fully back in, to the Bears and just seeing what they're going to do. I still have my Lions gear. I'm always going to be a Dan Campbell guy. So like, I still have that, and I got made fun of for it. But I was like, I don't care. This is more for Dan Campbell. Like I respect him. I would love to meet him. He is a guy I want to meet. But anyway, I would even work for him. He could pay me $50,000 a year and I'd be his personal assistant. I really don't care. I would shine his shoes. I'd be his get back guy. I do not care. Pay me $50,000 a year and I'll live up in Detroit. I do not care.
Nice.
But we were talking about that, and I said, the only way I think you should take him in the draft depends what you do in free agency. If you pick up a couple linemen in free agency, then you could risk that. Not risk, I don't know if that's the right word, but then you can take him to be that other running back and still get other linemen in the draft. If you don't like the free agent stuff or you're not getting that part, then you need to draft other positions. So that part all depends on what you do in free agency. And I'm hoping that Ben Johnson, being around Dan Campbell and that general manager, saw how they built that team, because he was there. He's been there for the bad times. He said, I've been around more bad times than good times. So that's how I can appreciate the good times and understand that. So for me, I would love to have him there drafted, but it all depends on if you pick up two really good linemen in the free agent market, you can sit there and say, okay, we can take him, add another weapon for Caleb Williams. There's our other running back. And then throughout the draft, you can find good lineman players throughout the rest of the draft. So that's kind of, and you have $70 million to spend too. So that's the other part.
And that's the key. But you have, again, the resources if you want to go out and invest. And we've done this and checked some of the free agents already. There's not really, I would say, besides maybe Kyler Gordon, there isn't really a massive piece I think that's missing. I mean, I know we can talk Keenan Allen, but like we've talked this. Like I think Keenan Allen, it comes down to if you feel like you have resolved and invested and did your priorities right on the line. Because I feel like Keenan Allen goes to the luxury position of getting him back over what you really need, but that's up in the air. How much is he wanting? Like you have two signings I think that are worth the discussion right now in the re-signing bin that we need to talk about. But like otherwise, like some people just you need to look and invest in or make a decision on, like Tevin Jenkins. Do you feel like he has been worth the value and is healthy enough often to be your starting guard moving forward? And what is the value he wants? Does it make sense to do that? Is what I'm asking. So,
right.
Those have to be answered before and I guess Kyler Gordon before we even get to like a Keenan Allen in my eyes.
Right. If they can make it work, if they can make it work, awesome. I think everybody would love to have Keenan Allen back. There's just another weapon. I just don't know if you're gonna be able to make it work because there's other things you have to address with that. So, the Bears, they're set for the future. They're set to try to win right now. They're set to do this. So we are also a Detroit Lions podcast, apparently. Like that's just what we are.
Yeah, it's secondary. Yeah, but I'm with you. We division rival and savvy head coach that we both enjoy. I mean, what's the complaint?
So I bring that up because this happened. He was hired. Oh my God! Did the Detroit Lions Twitter, the Detroit Lions podcast people, just lose their mind? They lost it. The amount of stuff I have seen, and I'm going to curse because I'm paraphrasing here. You fucking snake going to Chicago. You're a coward. You couldn't stay to do this. How dare you go to our rival, the Chicago Bears, and on and on and on. And I'm watching this, and they hope that he does bad and everything else. And like, you know, even the players, like the St. Thomas Brown brothers or whatever, like they have their podcast, and he was like, they even made comments. And then I watched Pat McAfee. There was an 8-minute video, and they were like, Detroit Lions fans are not happy. And I watched it, and his guys on there were like, oh, wait a minute. He didn't win the Super Bowl, right? Because they were asking, like, you as a Packers fan, and like, are you scared about him going to the Bears? And he was like, what have the Bears done? What has Ben Johnson done as a head coach? Oh, I'm not worried. Foxy, that's on there, he's the only one. He said, I can't believe how much hatred he is getting. Like, we should be grateful that he came back this year to try to help us do it. We didn't get it done. He helped us lead to one of the best offenses for the last 3 years. He helped reinvent Jared Goff. Like, we got some good things done. We just couldn't finish it. Like, good luck to you in Chicago. We got to move on. We knew he was good. And the thing is, they knew he was going to leave, but they're just so mad that it's the Bears. They're so mad.
Anyone with the pulse knew he was going to leave. Like, you can finish, but it's the Bears part. Let's be
it's the Bears part. But like, and then there's that podcast, Woodward Sports or something, that's in the Planet Fitness. One of the main guys on there really wasn't bashing him, but everybody else was. They were like, no, fuck you, Ben Johnson, fuck the Bears and everything else, and going off. And they're like, I hope he does bad. He's a snake. He's this, he's that. And it's just all these tweets, even I can't even keep up. And I'm like, oh my God. And then they're like, Chicago is our rival. That is our rival game. And you went to a rival game. That is disrespectful to the Detroit Lions. That's disrespectful to Dan Campbell. That's disrespectful to this. And I can't wait to kick your ass and just show you why you should never have left. And I'm looking at this. And so I tried I filmed myself driving this morning. I made a video and I ended up not posting it. It was actually pretty good. So I'm going to try my best to re-say it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get why the fans are so upset. You lost your offensive coordinator that's doing a lot of good things. This should have been the year that you should have maybe almost got to a Super Bowl. Like, this was the time. And you're mad that he went to Chicago. Okay. My argument would be, I know the Bears and Lions are like rivals, but I don't know if it's necessarily like a hatred between them, like it is with the Bears and the Packers. Like, I know there is some, but I think it'd be different if like Ben Johnson was at the Bears and then he went to the Packers. I think that would do something there. And the fact that, was he supposed to turn down a job that he wanted? Like, obviously I don't care if it was the money or not. He didn't want to go to the Jaguars. He didn't want to go here. I think it was down to the Raiders and Bears because of money, and the Bears somehow won it out. And maybe because we have a quarterback, we have some things in place. When we coach, okay, we coach because we want to help kids or adults. We coach because we love wherever we're coaching. We want to help build that up. We want to help the communities or the towns, wherever you're at. And we also coach because we love the X's and O's. We love the game.
Exactly.
When you lose love for one of them, you have to stop coaching. Okay. But every coach, especially if you're a coach, he's only 38 too, mind you. He's
really young.
You have your career steps that you think you want to do. And if you feel like you're ready, right? Last year, he wanted to take another crack at it with them. He didn't, maybe he didn't feel like he was also ready. Maybe he's like, I need this extra year to try to get my mind right, and then I can make that step. So we have these career things, right? And he feels like he's in a spot to try to move up. So the next step for him, because he was with Miami for a while, then he's with Detroit for 6 years. The next part in his development, his career is, I want to be a head coach. I want to go to a place that I feel like I can win at, and everything else. And also in the back of the mind, you have to strike while the iron is hot. So let's say he stayed in Detroit fans, and to make you happy, stays. What if they only win 8 games next year, 7 games next year? Well, now his value has dropped because of whatever, right? So you have to strike. and it's part of his development. Like, you have to respect a coach that wants to move up. And he did a lot for Detroit. You should be thanking him for what the time he spent in Detroit and say, we'll see you twice a year and hopefully we kick your ass. I would respect that. I would have said the same thing. But this is the next part of it. Like, if he feels like this is the best place for him to go, money wise, general management wise, player wise, in his development, then you have to respect that decision. Yeah, it sucks that's in the division, but he made it very clear. He loves the NFC North. He wants to coach the NFC North. It just sucks. So my question, so that's kind of where I'm like, why are you calling him a snake? Why are you calling him this? Like, I know the Bears and Lions have like a rivalry, but to me, it's not the same as it is with like the Bears Packers. It's not the same when it's Lions Vikings. Like, it's not quite to that level. So this hatred now for him and everything else, I guess, is what makes sports fun. But I look at it from like Ben Johnson's perspective. So you would rather have him be miserable and like come back to Detroit and say, I should have went to the Bears, or him be miserable and say, well, I went to Jacksonville, and like, it's a business, it's his coaching career. And it's the NFL. So and I think he kind of knew, like, if I came back to Detroit, we're going to have a new defensive coordinator probably. We're going to have a new this. We're going to have a new that. Every year in the NFL is different. Like, they're never the same teams. So I think he was also thinking, like, I need another challenge. So I just don't, I get it, but it was also seemed to me be over the top of like, and guess what, guys? You kind of knew this was happening. There was interest in the Chicago Bears last year. And like, this was going to probably happen. So I don't know. And I don't know. It was very over the top of this hatred all of a sudden for him.
I have many things to kind of lay on the table with this, because I am very with you. There was no way in hell this man was staying in Detroit. He took an extra year last year. They somehow went above and beyond what was a 12-5 season in the regular season. Even with injuries, people thought this was a Super Bowl team even more so. And that's talking to a team that, honestly, if it isn't for a few drop passes, probably makes it to the Super Bowl last season with the roster they had. So to keep this in perspective, they're going in and they're ready to take on the Commanders, who, I admit, I thought Detroit was going to pull it out, but I wasn't sure about the defense. And unfortunately, defense caved, and not Ben Johnson's fault for the offense. I'm an adamant Jared Goff defender with my friends, but Jared Goff did not have a good game. He choked that game. And I'm going to lay it out there. I like Jared Goff. I think he is a franchise QB, but you can't put interceptions squarely on a man that was creatively in play calling, giving you a shot to win. Like, that is what I want to be clear. You can, yes, the Jameis Williams interception, it was a dumb play. They were getting desperate. I think mentally just things were not there because they just realized that they got kicked in the teeth and were trying to do everything they can to keep in control. And it just was not their night, But I don't blame that on Ben Johnson. I mean, even Amon-Ra St. Brown has said that is not on him. The man was as locked in as he's ever seen him, he claims, in terms of this game. But what I think people in the Detroit fan base are most upset about, a lot of it is because it's the Bears, because it's a rival team, because all the rumors have been leading up to Chicago for some time. But what I think adds to this, I mean, Steve, he was like instantly in Chicago, like within a 2-day window of them being eliminated, he was on a jet plane and in the city to talk and get contracts signed and have a press conference. And I think that's what's sticking with people, and why I'm seeing this narrative of, oh, he wasn't locked in. He was just getting ready to get the hell out of there. He was just ready to leave. I don't agree with that. But man, you can tell they were talking and they were ready to just get him in there. And I I don't know if it is because McCaskey's and them were like, just give him the checkbook before the Raiders give him any talks, that he doesn't have a reason to leave or whatnot. But like that, I think is part of the optics that I think Detroit fans are trying to justify. Do I think they're justified? Hell no. Hell no. I think it is a complete overreaction. They need to, and a lot of people on that side of the fan base have to take a deep freaking breath, is what I'm telling you. That is still a well put together roster. Brad Holmes has put together a fantastic roster in Detroit that just unfortunately choked. Injuries caught up, like you said, and the offense that night, Jared Goff did not perform. Most nights he does. That night, unfortunately, he did not show up, and he got greedy on a few too many plays that led to them getting behind when it mattered most. That's right. What happened. And I don't think that rests on Ben Johnson. I think the discussion from Lions fans is just because, like, yes, going to a rival is different than going to the AFC to a team that you're not going to play often and whatnot. And that, yes, it is even me going, oh my God, they signed him in 48 hours. Like, Jesus, that's quick, but this is the business. This is how this works. When you are astronomically at the top of the coaching food chain, Mike Vrabel's off the list at this point. This isn't a choose anymore. This is, you get him or you then just scramble and pick the next available. Like, you're stuck. Like, that's it. Like, this is how that cycle works, and as much as tampering talks are the talk of the town, let's face it, people talk. Like, tampering, I will probably say it just because I guarantee there is probably a case for tampering all over the league if you look hard enough every single year. So let's not talk like Ben Johnson hasn't had conversations or hasn't at least had texts on the side with some people over the time. I mean, for God's sakes, man, he was in Thanksgiving watching Matt Eberflus essentially get his ass walked out the door. You can't tell me that he's at least had one text with someone in the last 3 months.
Right. He said his search committee brought him stuff. And that's what he said. He said the game was over, and all of a sudden he gets the information about what it would be to come to the Bears, and he had to, and it happened. He said it just kind of happened. And because these guys do get search committees, he has an agent, he has this, like, people doing it for him.
When you're that high value of a target, I would do the same thing. If I have that money and resources, I gotta focus. Like, if he's as focused as he says, I'm not focusing on looking for the job right now. I got a fucking game to prepare for.
Well, that's what they said on the Pat McAfee show. They were like, the reason why they lost is because he was too focused on going to the Bears, and that's what everybody is saying. They were like,
how can you put that on him if you have your quarterback commit 3 turnovers in the first half and then just defense is beaten to shit? Like, I'm sorry. Like, how do you put that solely on him?
And Pat, and this is why I couldn't tell if it was like a bit, but even them, all of them on Pat McAfee's show were like, man, he's probably looking at that play sheet going, man, I would love to call this play, but this is going to be for Caleb Williams. I got to put that in my back pocket so that these guys don't even know what it is, because I don't want them to figure it out what it is. So I'm not going to call those plays. And I'm like, wait a minute. The Lions still scored like 30 points, like whatever it was. So they still and for all that he has done with Detroit and being around and like helping Dan Campbell build this, like, you really think he was going to be that disrespectful? And like you said, players were talking. They're like, he was locked in. Like, he was, very well into the game. And this interview happened during their bye week before the game. It wasn't like this happened 2 days before the game. Like, he did it. He has his agent doing his thing.
Correct.
And it sucks. It's the same thing with college football, how quickly these hires happen. And again, because they have to happen so quickly because of the draft coming up, the free agent market, trying to get a staff put together, getting a plan for your spring, getting a plan for the summer, like all that stuff. And then hiring a lot of those office people are going to keep their jobs, but then like, what extra stuff do you need? Like, a lot of things have to happen very quickly. And I don't like it either. Like, I really don't like how it's set up. I kind of wish that there was a rule that, like, after the Super Bowl, you start interviewing guys or whatever. I wish there was something like that. and it's never going to happen. But I understand how quickly these things do have to happen. I was shocked about how quickly. And then I know Aaron Glenn's not going to get the same hatred because he's going to the Jets. But if you're going to give Ben Johnson hate for how quickly this happened, then you better give Aaron Glenn the same thing about how quickly he went to the Jets. Like how quickly this kind of happened. I know he's going to the Jets, whatever. It's not an NFC North. So I understand why they're mad. They're mad that it's an NFC North that he's still in, and they're mad that it's the Bears. But like, he's doing what he feels is best for him. He felt that way last year staying there. He feels like he has to go try this head coaching thing out. You could be mad it's the Bears. You could be mad that it's the NFC North. But like going over the top with all of it is just a lot for me. And maybe it'll happen to us. Maybe one day we're going to have a coordinator go to the Packers or the Vikings and we're going to sit here and say, how dare you pick them? But like at the same time, we have to try to understand what's going through the process here. And I love how I think it was St. Brown that said to him, like, we're going to kick your ass for 2 games next year. And Ben Johnson, I guess, told him, like, no, I'm about to fuck you up. Like, he's very confident in, like, what they're trying to do.
I mean, good, cool beans. Like, I'm good. Just win, man. I'm glad that there's swagger, but I got to see some, I got to see the execution. Talk is cheap. It is very easy to make. Lions fans, I think need to take a breath. I think they knew this. Here's the thing. I think they knew this was coming, but I'm with them where it's like, this sucks because I thought this was the year they were going to excel beyond. You know, it didn't happen. I'm going to give you another reason why I think they're sympathetic on Glenn. Is I think they see what Glenn did with, honestly, the mess of just how do you manage double, like, was it at one point it was 20 plus IR management. It was upwards of, I think, 17, 18 going into, and most of them were defensive leaning, mind you, going into this. You don't have Aiden Hutchinson on your edge rush, you know, like, I think that's part of why also people are sympathetic, where it's like, besides the Jets, it's also like guy was a little with nothing. Whereas like you have Ben Johnson, where it's like that unit's healthy near all year. And it decides, and again, not on him, but it chokes in the time of the year you don't want it to choke at home,
right?
Mind you, you know, and I think it's a combination of all this stuff. And I don't know what to say. Like Detroit fans, I really think need to take a breath. I like Dan Campbell. I have faith the man's going to get the right pieces there. It's just, you know, you got to get coordinators in. They still, again, you didn't lose your GM. Brad Holmes is still there. You're still able to get a guy that has been able to consistently bring in good talent and retain top talent in that market. You just need to get new coordinators. That is the main thing. It's a lot of brain drain, talent drain, but this is what the great head coaches do. They reload. Right. And I think this will be the greatest test of Dan Campbell so far is, okay, you've built a culture with these players. You have a culture of winning now, and I think a brotherhood and an expectation of what it is to be a Lions player and that grit mentality.
Right.
Who do you bring in to fix, or at least I'm not fix, but to at least get to a level where you should expect next year to have similar playoff success or success in what is a increasingly tough NFC North. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's the toughest division in the league. And I know that all of them got eliminated in one game this year, but don't take that as a slight. Like that's tough division, man. Like that is going to be a hard one to win in again. You know?
Right. And now think of these coaches: Matt LaFleur, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and you have one guy that knows all your tricks. You
right.
know?
And so it's going to be the toughest division. He says he has a lot of respect for those coaches. That's why he wanted to stay in there. I think he likes the competition. He wants to go against them all the time, and which is awesome. So you have a guy that's competitive. But like you said, Dan Campbell has shown, like, take a program, strip it down, build it up, finally get somewhere. So the next evolution of his head coaching is can you reload with a staff? Because he helped build that. Like Ben Johnson was with, like these guys had been with him.
Well, let's keep that in mind. Like this isn't like out of the blue. You have to evaluate and bring in your talent. That is part of your job. You have to know what people are going to make my mission possible as well.
Well, and
especially for a guy that's a coach's coach. We talk about coach's coach on here a lot, not just a play call coach like Ben Johnson's going to be, or like Andy Reid. Like we're talking a guy that is a, the quote leader of men position, where it's I'm getting the best out of the people I bring in that I want this that is the vision that I want for a side of the ball I look at.
Because you look at like a Nick Saban, he had shown like get a staff, win. And then the next evolution part of him being at Alabama was, okay, you've done well, you're going to lose guys. Can you bring in others? And he's shown time and time again that he could do that. So that was the next part of his like evolution of a staff. And that's why he's probably the best college football coach of all time, because he showed that he could do that. And so this is part of Dan Campbell's next evolution is, can you do that? Like you even think about it, Bill Belichick up until the end, he kept guys, but then when a guy would leave, they still were competitive with whoever he had up until the end.
Shoot, if you want to talk Belichick's end, I think Belichick's greatest fault was just getting too experimental and trusting guys that he thought could be that. That's it. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. And he's North Carolina bound for sure. He's not going anywhere. So,
right.
That man's going to try and see if he can be a college success over at North Carolina. Dan Campbell, I think, like I said, he knows the mission. He was quoted today. They had a press conference about, just knowing that they're going to be losing coordinators. And this is the quote he said about that when asked. He said, "That's my job. This is to replenish and find the next man up." This was what he said Monday, actually. Is it a loss? Absolutely. But yet we move forward. This train rolls on. We find next best guys for us. And that's what you got to do. Like, look, you're a successful coach. You start building a program. You start getting guys that are recognized for their coordinators. Like coordinators are always the next man up. If you are as successful as you are in Detroit with the numbers you're putting up and with the, presence on both sides of the ball you're doing well with, you're going to see talent drain. It's always about how you respond next, which, shoot, if we want to talk about coaching candidates, I think, and some people point this as why they didn't want Mike Vrabel, is some people felt Mike Vrabel didn't reload his talent well with Tennessee after Arthur Smith left. I still blame the front office for a lot of those failings his final 2 years.
And they were fired. Like, so maybe Vrabel wasn't the problem.
Yeah. I still put a lot of that, but like, that's part of the overall mission. You're going to lose people. How do you replenish? That is one of the greatest tests to the longevity of a head coach, is that, and to a good head coach is how do you evaluate people that are up and comers that when you lose someone, you can put it in place and keep similar stuff. And, if we're talking them, I know we're talking a lot of Lions, but like this is going to be the dichotomy all of next year. I feel like is that Bears Lions is going to be this big rivalry, arguably maybe bigger than the Packers for how we're talking about it right now because of Ben Johnson. Jared Goff they've already said on press conference with Dan Campbell that Jared Goff will be one of the front men with Campbell on searching for the next OC position piece in Detroit. And as some of my Rams friends point out, is Jared Goff, some of them feel is that he is good when certain coordinators fit his stuff. This will be a test of not only Campbell, it's going to be a test of Jared Goff. Like, I like Jared Goff. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks to play this game in recent memory, but his legacy a lot of times has been tied to the play caller he's been put in.
Right.
With. So, this isn't just like pressure on Dan Campbell to get the right guys. This is pressure on Jared Goff to prove that he wasn't just a Ben Johnson, glow up like for him. So, lots riding on that, but I think they got the right guy. And again, to just finish off, like Detroit fans, you got to calm down, man. Like I still love the roster they've got. That's the crazy part. Like this, now the fact you're in the stage where you're saying we just gotta get that like good performance or one maybe piece or like a health. The fact I can say if they're just healthy, imagine what that could have happened.
Right, and
that is really good to be in that spot.
That's why
is all I can say.
That's why I think I've tweeted yesterday and today of Lions, you're going to be okay. You have Dan Campbell, you have your GM, you still have the roster, you have some draft picks to use, you still have money like that you can spend. I understand, and I know it's going to be tough at first. You hire a new coordinator, you got to learn how he's going to call plays, you got to learn his like style, and it's going to take a little bit. But you're going to be okay. Like, I still feel that you're the team to beat still coming into next year. No matter who they hire, the Detroit Lions are the team to beat in the NFC North. It's not the Bears. It's not whatever. It's the Detroit Lions. So you are going to be okay. And for some of the Lions fans, and I try to do this with myself with the Bears, remember where you came from too. Like, this is awesome.
Yes.
And this is nothing. Like, I love it. I love they did well last year. I love that they did so well this year.
Always remember, and I will say this with especially fan bases that, you know, they get consistent winning or maybe they're new to winning. Like, don't forget what the other side of the coin is. There is always a bottom, you know, like I always tell people I would rather have a winning season and get like knocked out in a round and know that, you know, I at least can consistently get winning. I just need to get pieces than to be at the bottom and have to be like, I hope to God we found the right guy this time. Like, just no, I'd rather be like, when we talk like Pittsburgh or Green Bay fans, you know, which Green Bay fans, I laugh at you for any remark saying that Matt LaFleur should be fired. Cause hey, I would have loved to have what you guys have had recent years, man. I'm just telling you.
I would love to be competing for the conference, like to be up there just competing for it. And I would love to be in the conversation of a playoff and you get to the playoffs and you just know that you're one or two pieces away from maybe breaking through. Like, I laughed when they were talking about Mike Tomlin being like, should he be the head coach of the Steelers? And I laughed. I'm like, is that a serious question of like, he hasn't had a losing season. So it's like, are you kidding me? So it's just Steelers, they always win, so they kind of know. But like Detroit Lions, and Dan Campbell knows it too. Like, Dan Campbell probably the first one to tell you, like, we have to enjoy this because you never know when that is going, like because the NFL, like these things, like it isn't always pretty.
Dynasties do not last forever in the NFL. Like I want to make that very clear.
Look at the 49ers. Look at the 49ers. Super Bowl runs this year. All like, look, like it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I know Bill Belichick, they had that consistent success for a while. There's always exceptions to those. Like, you're always going to have those moments where these teams do this. Kansas City Chiefs right now, like, there's always going to be these moments. But how often does that happen? And what's the next team that's going to do it? The Patriots did it. I mean, even look at Peyton Manning and the Colts. Like, he only won a Super Bowl with the Colts, but they were constantly winning. I would rather be like that, competing for that, than being at the very bottom all the time. So Detroit Lions fans, like, you're getting really upset about this. Just understand, you still have your head coach. You still have the culture put in place. The GM is all bought into that culture. The owners are all bought into that. Some of your assistant coaches are still going to be there, not necessarily coordinators, but some of those people are still going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just have to be confident that Dan Campbell can pull this off and get the right people in, and that's going to be the next step. And that just know you're the team that everybody wants to beat now. So, like, you have the target on your back. But remember, what were you before Dan Campbell got there? What was the first years like with Dan Campbell? It was a lot of growing pains. It was a lot of trying to rebuild it. So now just try to live in it, because you never know in the NFL when it's going to stop, and you have to try to do this again. So they just I feel for him, and I know it means nothing coming from Bears fans because we got their guy, but like I would just hope that if this happens to us, that I don't act that way and say like screw this guy, like whatever it is. But I get it, but it's a little over the top.
It is. It is. I don't know. I will say that they're not the first to have an overreaction like that, but like anytime I see a fan base do this, I just go, just take a breath, man. That's all it is.
For sure.
Take a breath. Sure. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of? I mean, Chicago, hey, I'm here for it. They landed the guy. Let's start getting wins now. Start putting some W's on the board, fix some problems. Here we go.
The first step's going to be what they do in free agency and stuff like that. That'll be the first telltale sign of, are they fully in on getting pieces put in? That's going to be the telltale of Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson's relationship and the McCaskies. Like, are they willing to get these coaches, get these off-season pieces? I will kind of have an idea before even training camp of what this is about through those decisions that they decide to make. And so very curious. We got the guy. Now let's see if we can compete in the conference. Please, no Super Bowl talk right now. Just
no. I want to hear about establishing culture and getting stuff in order. Playoffs, I think minimum again. I don't mind, but like, I'm not here for the hype train again anymore. People like that. That's no. Stop it. I am not here for that. Get through the off season. Show some fun videos, and let's just see what it's like when they start the year. That's all I want.
For sure.
So get to the draft. Let's go to the draft. That in free agency. Those are next two pieces on the board. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow on Rumble as well if you're there. It's always going live simultaneously there as well. And we'll keep hopping on when Bears news comes on, and the best we can. It is the off season, so we'll do the best we can there. It feels fun to be a Bears fan again today. More than it was. I guess the last thing I'll leave this with is, what if Matt Eberflus becomes the DC for the Detroit Lions? I'll leave it at that.
That would be funny. That would be actually kind of funny. But I also would laugh because that's he's not bad DC. That's what's weird. I don't know. I don't want to think about it too much. I gotta stop. Stop that for a second.
Wouldn't that be fun? All right, thanks.
That'd be something.
It'd be fun. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.